I'll try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of talking, and I need more of a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I hope we turn it around. No, I hope we turn it around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through, get you out of your comfort zone, 'cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high.
Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word Live and to some random Friday roundup chat. So much happening this morning in Formula One. It's all got very political, let's put it that way. Hope you're all well today. In the UK, I hope you're staying cool. It is boiling, and I know before you say you're from a hot country and we don't know what heat is, I get it, but it is really hot over here today, but I don't mind. It's fine. Loads to talk about today. As I'm sure you can imagine, if you've been following the news over on Twitter, you'll already be up to date with this one. For those who are not, essentially, Renault have, by definition, won their protest against Racing Point, but as a couple of you are pointing out in chat, I don't think €400,000 and 15-point deduction is really a win. But there we go. That is, by definition, correct. I love getting you all on a technicality. I can't help it. It's as simple as that one. That's where we've got to start today, though, is the news that Renault, of course, who launched a protest after the Styrian Grand Prix, and after each Grand Prix since, they did a protest after Styria, then one after Hungary and Britain over these alleged breaches of the regulations by Racing Point regarding their brake ducts. They launched their investigation. That was all looked into in midweek, and the FIA announced... Sorry, I just saw Jack Chambers in chat, you're disgusting. Announced their decision this morning. So what basically has happened is was an allegation, if you've not been keeping up on it, that Racing Point were using brake ducts designed by Mercedes, which is was a listed part last year but isn't a listed part this year. So a listed part means that the teams can buy that or can get information from that, whereas a non-listed part, they have to design themselves, if that makes sense. So there was this allegation they breached the rules because they were identical. From what we saw of them on TV, not that we got to see much, they did look pretty close, to be fair, but it's the rear brake ducts that's causing all the fuss at the moment, not the front ones. I'll get on to why in a minute. So they heard the case on Wednesday. It all went very quiet on Thursday. We're all waiting for this decision, which came in this morning. And the FIA decided to uphold the Renault protest, which, again, by definition, means they won and Racing Point lost. What's got everyone very confused is the penalty, if you can call it that Racing Point have received. So it was determined that they were not in breach of the technical regulations, but actually of the sporting regulations. I love Formula One so much, which is why they were not disqualified from any event. They can't be disqualified on a sporting regulation breach. The front brake ducts have been declared legal as they were used on the 2019 car, but as the rear ones weren't used last year, they've breached the regs. So what's actually happened is Racing Point have obtained these, is it CAD drawings from Mercedes? They've gone and designed, in air quotes, or built, I suppose, copied these front brake ducts and then put them on the 2019 car. Because they were on the 2019 car, they can be used in 2020 because that can be considered their part, if that makes sense. The rear brake ducts, they got the same CAD drawings for. They designed them or built them, tweaked what they needed to, but didn't put them on the car until this year. It's so complicated. It doesn't need to be, but because they were put on the car this year and not last year, they can't be determined or it can't be agreed that they are Racing Point's own work. And so they've decided they've copied Mercedes. That's essentially what's happening there. It's all very, like, you know, if you've been following long enough, you know I'm not technically minded, so this is all, like, blowing my mind. I cannot get my head around it, but, yeah. It's all a bit of a mess, I think, is the way to go for it. So what they've decided to do is, from the point of the rules, the rear ducts were designed by Mercedes, so that makes them, or the way they were designed, illegal, if that makes sense. So the FIA have deducted 15 points. I can't stop laughing at this. 15 points from Racing Point's constructors total, which works out officially as 7.5 points per car and a €400,000 fine, which is €200,000 per car. The drivers, though, do keep their accrued points, if you like, for the first 4 races. So that doesn't change. Nothing changes there. I cannot really quite believe the can of worms that the FIA have been willing to open up with this decision. It's sort of baffled me quite massively, because what this now does is it opens up so many loopholes for so many teams if they want to exploit this regulation. Because if you are, and we'll talk about this a bit more later, but if you're a Red Bull, and I think they touched on this in Sky commentary, so if you're Red Bull or Ferrari, you can, in theory, give AlphaTauri or Haas your front or rear brake ducts and then go, well, they'll just take the fine and they'll take the points deduction because we know that's going to give them more time and they know they'll get more pace, and so they can pick up those points for the end of the year. It's really weird. I think I talked about this briefly with Chamber in DMs on Twitter earlier. Basically, they probably wouldn't get away with that because the FIA would say, look, we've clarified this regulation. That's what this protest is about. They've clarified this regulation, so it's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. So it might be different, but it's really brought up a few question marks for the future of Formula One, but I'll talk about that in a moment as well because the FIA have had their say on that one as well. So what's also getting people a little bit confused, a little bit het up, if you like, is that the FIA have basically said that despite the ruling today, Racing Point can continue to use the ducts this season as they are not in breach of the technical regulations, and it is not realistic to expect Racing Point to redesign them for this season. I get that. It sort of makes sense. However, what they will get if they use them is a reprimand after every single event. So if they use the ducts this weekend, they'll get a reprimand after the 70th anniversary race. They'll get one next week in Barcelona. They'll get one in Belgium, Italy, and so on and so forth. But they will not face any other sanctions at time of streaming. The point of the penalty is effectively to penalise this, I suppose, shortcutting of the design phase of the regulations, if you get what I mean there. They've not designed these themselves, and they've kind of cut corners, if you like, to be able to get that on the car this year. So when other teams are all going out and designing their own front and rear brake ducts, Racing Point haven't done that. So I think that's what the penalty is more about. But it sucks if you're one of the other teams on the grid that like to buy parts or want to buy parts or haven't got the money to really sort of design your own amazing parts, like a Williams, for example. That's going to be massively frustrating for them. But what I'll do, long story short, Racing Point did not use the rear brake ducts last year, but did obtain the plans from Mercedes last year. Now, that was within the rules. They're allowed those plans because at that point, they were listed parts. The teams can obtain CAD drawings, buy bits and all of that sort of thing. However, they copied those designs and only put them on the 2020 car, which means when they built those for specifically the 2020 car, they were in breach of the regulations because they've become non-listed parts. I really wish we could just have a nice clear rule in Formula One just somewhere. So, yeah, that's kind of the mess we're in with Racing Point. But what's actually happening now is I'll just go to Twitter because I was reading it a moment ago from Chris Medland, a number of teams, including Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo and Williams, are allegedly considering a big protest. Zach Brown said they claimed they had copied the car from photography. It's clear from reading the document that is BS. His words. That is a direct quote from Zach Brown. They are not happy at all, and it sounds as though it's all going to kick off. But do you remember back in February when the 8 teams all got together or was it 7 teams all got together and signed that letter to the FIA against Ferrari's engine or whatever it was? That's what it feels like today. It feels like we're about to get a massive protest from a lot of teams because it's opened up this enormous loophole. And like I was saying about AlphaTauri and Red Bull and Ferrari and Haas, we're going to end up in a position where teams aren't going to have to design anything. And quite frankly, if we're going to be doing that, then we need to be dropping the Constructors' Championship name. Let's just make it a Teams Championship. Let them buy the parts, but call it a Teams Championship. You've got to draw the line somewhere. And I can completely sympathise with these other teams on the grid because it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it's just, I don't know. I expect we're going to hear more going into this weekend. Probably after the race on Sunday, we might find that multiple teams decide to protest rather than just Renault. But this is the other interesting thing, and this is why I like Formula One. Despite the fact they, again, in air quotes, won their protest, they're going to protest it. They're going to protest it. Bizarre. Apparently had it the wrong way around on the list parts thing. So, yeah, other way around then from what I said. But, yes. I don't know. I can understand. I kind of look at Racing Point's situation. I've been saying all year that I actually like the way they've gone about it. They've admitted they can't build a car as good as Mercedes, so why not copy it? That's essentially what they've done. So that's absolutely, I like that. That's the way forward. Just look what Haas do as well, the way they enter Formula One. I like the way they do that. But you can't just have these teams going off and buying these CAD drawings and looking for loopholes in that regulation and copying directly parts of a car that they shouldn't be copying or can't copy without extra information. You can't be doing that because, like I say, you might as well get rid of the Constructors' Championship and just have a Teams Championship. By the way, that championship on screen now of the Constructors' Championship, that is correct at time of recording. Racing Point dropped to 27 points to 6th place in the championship. Renault moved up to 5th, but they still have the same points, Renault. They've not gained anything from this. And I think that's another thing that will frustrate Renault about this whole thing is that because there wasn't a disqualification, they haven't ended up any better off. Yes, they've gained a position, but you're not telling me Racing Point are not going to score 15 points between now and the end of the season. In fact, I am going to confidently predict that if everything goes the way you'd expect it to with that car this weekend, they're probably going to make that 15 points back this weekend. So they've not really lost anything, have they? And €400,000, yeah, for a midfield team is a bit more of a hit than it would be for a Mercedes or Ferrari, but €400,000 in Formula One sense is a couple of front wings, something like that. It doesn't seem... The punishment doesn't fit the crime, if you can call it that. I don't know. I'll come to you guys in chat for a few. In fact, no, I'll come to you guys now, actually, because I've got something else I want to read from the FIA, because they are pretty adamant that this is going to stop now with this copying thing. So I don't know why they keep pussyfooting around this. The car is the exact same car that Mercedes were running in 2019. That's from Damn You Tech. A few people on Twitter actually saying this morning that the first clue for the FIA was the fact that we keep calling it the tracing point. Max Claydon, afternoon mate, says it seems very stupid. Immortal Zero, so Racing Point can still use their rear brake ducts. Yes, they can, but they will get a reprimand for what that's worth. And the reprimands, by the way, I was looking through the regulations earlier. As far as I understand it, they're not the same as a driver reprimand. So a driver can get so many per year before they then face a race ban or not a race ban or a penalty or something like that. They get a bigger sanction. I don't think that's the same for the teams. So Racing Point are just going to get this list of... They're just going with what we got. At least 8 races, maybe 9 races left this season. So that's going to be 9 more reprimands is what they're going to get, despite the fact they're running a brake duct design that is in breach of the sporting regulations, or at least the way they've designed it or gone about it is in breach of the sporting regulations. You can completely understand why people are just a little bit miffed at this one. I personally am very surprised. I thought Racing Point were going to get away with it. I didn't think anything would come of it because the FIA had done that investigation. So, yeah. Very weird. I was saying all last week, wasn't I, that I don't think anything will come of it, and it absolutely has. It will not become a copycat championship as the rules have now officially been clarified, and any further breach will be punished. I'll get onto that in a minute. DJ Red Raven, thank you for that, mate. Went on to say, and 15 points could be well worth millions. It could, but Racing Point will make that back in no time. That car is last year's Mercedes. It's got last year's Mercedes brake ducts on it. It's probably going to score those 15 points back this weekend, and they'll probably be pretty much where they were by the time we get to Barcelona. So if that had happened to a Williams or a Haas, that's their season over. For Racing Point, what are they, 3rd at worst, would you say? They weren't great last weekend, and no tyre issues and all that, but they were 3rd at worst this season, so they'll easily get those points back. I think that's also... Miguel says, a stern talking to. The way I see it is either the car is either legal or illegal, so the FIA need to pick which one it is. There is no middle point. That's from Hayden. One more. Brake duct rules changed after they designed the car, says Peter Ferret. I'm not... They knew what the regulations were going to be. They can't design those brake ducts. They can obtain those plans in 2019. Do you see what I mean? I love this sport. They can obtain the plans in 2019 legally, but they built those brake ducts specifically for the 2020 car. So although those regulations technically don't change until 2020, they are for the 2020 car, if you get what I'm saying there. So that's how I interpret the rule. I might be completely wrong. I often am. But that's how I kind of looked at the rule. So it's a real bizarre situation. That was Racing Point's argument as well, wasn't it? That, look, yeah, okay, fine. We didn't put them on until 2020. However, you can't forget what you've learned. But the FIA have come down on them. Like I say, hard. They haven't come down on them hard at all, have they? Not in the slightest. But again, you know, if that had been Force India days, €400,000, it's a big kick in the bank account, really, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see. But there is some other stuff actually from the FIA. They've done a press conference today. Just a few headlines from that. Nicholas Tombassis saying that the FIA are determined to prevent teams from being able to copy cars like Racing Point have this year and future seasons. So he does say here that copying cars in Formula One is something that's been going on for a long time. It's always been a part of Formula One, but the FIA don't want it to be to the extent that it is. So I'm going to read his quote here. He said, but Racing Point took this to another level. They clearly decided to apply this philosophy for the whole car by doing what I would call a paradigm shift. They actually used a disruption in the process that has been the norm of designing a Formula One car in the last 40 years. So one should not penalise them for that because they were original in deciding to follow this approach. However, we do not think this is what Formula One should become. We do not want next year to have 8 or 10 copies of Mercedes on the grid where the main skill becomes how you do this process. We don't want this to become the norm of Formula One. So they are going to be making some plans, or they're putting some plans together to make some changes at short notice to the 2021 sporting regulations that will prevent this from happening going forward. So it will prevent the teams from using extensive parts of photos to copy whole portions of other cars in the way that Racing Point has done. So in theory, this is the last time we should see this kind of thing to this extent. We're still going to see copycat cars. We're still going to see copycat front wings and noses and rear wings. But to the extent that Racing Point have done it, this should be the last time we see it. And the reason I'm going to keep saying should is because this is Formula One and they will write this regulation out absolutely beautifully, and then along will come an Adrian Newey or somebody like that and find 17 loopholes, and we'll be having this same argument in 6 months' time or this time next year. That is how F1 tend to do things. So yeah, I think it's good that they're trying to close off this loophole. I'm trying to sort of look at it from Racing Point's point of view, and I've always said on this channel for a long time now, certainly since we're doing the live streams, that I don't think everything should be a protest. I don't think everything should be deemed illegal. If a team looks at a part of a car that maybe they think is against the regulations or is giving someone an advantage, they should be rising to the technical challenge. That is something Ron Dennis used to always say. However, this isn't a technical challenge. Of course, reverse engineering something and understanding how something works is one hell of a challenge. But to me, by copying a car, it's not the same as, what have we got as examples? The double diffuser, the blown diffuser, that third secret pedal that McLaren had in the late 90s. It's not the same as that kind of innovation. I don't like protests for that, but I completely understand why Renault went ahead with this. And as it turns out, they were right to go ahead with this because Racing Point have breached the sporting regulations. It's all a right royal mess. It's not the last we've heard of it. We've got multiple teams set to, I think it was Jenny Gow over on Twitter saying that she expects a Zoom call between 8 teams this evening. Probably going to happen. But there is going to be something from this. There will be protests. There's going to be a lot of kickoff in the background. And I think this is something that will probably rumble on for quite a long time. And what are you thinking, chap? Super quickly, before I move on to the Hulkenberg news. Do you think the penalty fits the crime? Do you think that Renault are wrong to be a little bit frustrated with what Racing Point got? Or do you think that there needs to be more? I mean, what would you do? Would you throw them out of those 4 races? Would you tell them they can keep the points, but going forward they have to use the old brake ducts? I mean, that's what I was expecting today. When that decision came in, I thought it would be, look, you've got a reprimand, here's your fine, but going forward you've got to use your old brake ducts. You can't keep using those. But to allow them to keep using them and threaten them with a reprimand, I mean, who takes a reprimand seriously? It's a slap on the wrist. It's a don't do that again. That was naughty. Nobody. Stan says, no, there needs to be more. Max says the penalty should be harsher for me. Why? What have you done? You see? More for sure, says Thomas. Nikolai says needs more punishments. They should be disqualified, says Rob. Punishment is actually way too harsh, says Simon. I stand with Racing Point, says Vin. Vinny Yak. Jamie, good afternoon, mate. Says it's strange that they've decided it's illegal, but also let them carry on. That's what I don't get. It's somebody put it on Twitter. I think it was on Twitter. Or it might have been on YouTube, actually, on my community post, just saying, oh, hi, FIA, are these brake ducts legal? Yes, but also no. That's kind of where they are. They should be banned them for the future. Says Mika Freeze. Sorry. 400k is Lance's pocket money from Daddy. Harsh, but probably true. No, it's a joke. They must be deducted points at the start of next season, says Gabriel. Interesting. Where does the money from fines go, says Martins. I assume into the FIA pocket. It'd be nice if it went to some sort of charity, wouldn't it? But the FIA aren't going to. I mean, maybe to Renault. Who knows? Maybe that's what this was all about. They wanted an extra €400,000. It doesn't go to Renault, but there you go. Merck should be fine too if they've given them the plans. That's something I've seen on Twitter today. No, Mercedes were completely within the rules. They gave them those plans, those CAD drawings, whilst it was legal for them to do so. It's what Racing Point have done with them that is against the rules. So, yeah, really weird. I'm not technically minded. I hate saying it because you'll all go, well, go read a book then, you lazy git. But I'm an F1 fan with a ridiculous amount of opinions that mean absolutely nothing to anybody. So, but I do. Actually, I won't say that. What I will say is I'm pretty sure that you'll get a video from somebody who features on this channel at some point in the coming days. I'm not going to say any more than that, but yeah, keep an eye out for that one. They'll go into much more detail than I can. There's some fantastic stuff. There is a link, as there often is to these things, into the description for the full FIA decision, but my advice to you is to grab yourself a coffee and get comfortable because it's going to be a long read. It is a very long document, I can say that, and I've skimmed over it. I can't honestly say I've read every single part of it, because if you've ever read an FIA document, you know that by about the third paragraph, it all gets a little bit dull. But there you go. Stein wants to know my opinion on the penalty. I was just saying I don't think it's enough. If something's illegal, then there needs to be more. But at the same time, it's the same old. It's the stuff with football, isn't it, in some ways as well, or any sport. The governing body and the stewards can only follow, the referee in football can only follow what the regulations say. So if the sporting regulations say if you breach this, you get a fine and a points deduction, then that's what the FIA have got to do. But I hope going forward with the clarification that they're making to the rules, the changes they're making for 2021 to stop this happening again, I hope that comes with a harsher penalty. But I do think if they've made this decision and decided that part is illegal, what they should be doing is saying to Racing Point, fine, 15-point deduction, €400,000 fine. We'll let you keep your points for Hungary and for Britain, but going forward from this weekend's 70th anniversary Grand Prix, or if they think that that's not a fair amount of time, at least from next weekend's Spanish Grand Prix, just say you have to use your old ones. You cannot use those ducts. You either design some new ones, because that's the other funny thing. I don't know if this is true or whether this is just pure speculation or I'm making stuff up as I go along, which is probably what I'm doing because that's the F1 word and it's why we all love it. But I suppose technically Racing Point can take those off, throw them away, go back and redesign the rear brake ducts for this season and say, look, we've not looked at the CAD drawings. However, John over there, I don't know who John is, but what is better than Steve? It's usually Steve, isn't it? But John over there, he remembers what the inside of those brake ducts look like. So that is all our own work, but we've done it from memory. So I don't know. It's so weird. I think that's kind of their argument is you can't forget what you've learned. So it's illegal now, but next season they could design exactly the same brake ducts so long as they've not looked at the Mercedes CAD drawings for next year. It's, whatever. It's bizarre. But anyway, yes, the reason there's a live stream, by the way, I do usually do this sort of thing in a video, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know this a little bit. I've got an electrician in today, and he's gone to have some lunch, so I've got a spare half hour, 40 minutes where I could throw a live stream in, but I've got no electric again this afternoon, so I can't actually do a video. So he switched it back on for me now so I can quickly throw a live stream out. So, yes, a couple of other things to talk about this weekend, or specifically, Mr. Nico Hulkenberg. He is in the car. Yes, he is. Again this weekend, those slides are going to go way too quickly, Sean. Let's change the timing on those. But Nico Hulkenberg is back. Sergio Perez, bless him, has tested positive again for COVID-19. So if you've not been following this week, essentially earlier this week, there was some talk that Perez might be allowed to return this weekend because of a very clever loophole that was created by the British government, who are absolutely brilliant with their guidance, by the way. They absolutely nail it every time. Essentially, when he tested positive, there's so much sarcasm in that last line, I'm sorry. When he tested positive last week, it was whilst the guidelines were for a 7-day isolation period. So technically, he only had to self-isolate for 7 days because the rules didn't change until after that test had come back. So there was a bit of a loophole, which upset a lot of people because people sort of feel like they should be erring on the side of caution. And I tend to agree. I do tend to agree. I think they should maybe say, look, yes, that guidance changed, but you're going to be out this weekend. We want to play it safe. We don't want you coming in and infecting the entire paddock and taking F1 off the road again. We don't want that. So I think that would have been more sensible, but they were looking to get him in the car. I wasn't quite so sure. There was the rumour there, but I wasn't sure on it actually happening. And so Nico Hulkenberg was confirmed this morning following that second positive test from Checo, I did read on Twitter literally just before we went live that apparently he had a greater concentration of the virus in him in this test. So I hope he's okay. Apparently he's in good health and he's pretty much asymptomatic, I think is the term. So he's okay, and I hope he is going forward. So hopefully we'll see him in Barcelona, but there is some question marks over that because he's tested positive again overnight, which means he's got to isolate for 10 days. But because they're leaving the country, they don't have to isolate for 10 days. The regulations for entering Spain are different to the regulations in the UK. It's quite easy to see how these viruses spread, really, isn't it? But let's not get into that one because we just need everyone to agree on some kind of thing, but they're never going to. So, yeah. Racing Point hopefully will be back, but they don't know just yet. They'll make a decision next week. But it is great to see Hulkenberg. Nothing against Perez, of course. I hope he's okay. We don't want drivers falling ill or getting this virus, but it's great to see Hulkenberg get, I was going to say a second chance, technically a first chance. He had practice and qualifying last weekend, didn't he? And then couldn't race because his car didn't work at the start. They couldn't get it started, so he couldn't even race last Sunday. So this is his chance now, the one we were talking about last week to really nail it, especially with his nice brake ducts that he's allowed to use now. So maybe some good points for Nico, and I just hope he can get the race. I just hope he can get the race to the race this weekend. I think that's a huge one. But he's got a couple of, 3 practice sessions, so 4 hours of practice under his belt and a full qualifying session. Then got last Sunday off to sort of think about what he'd done and then move into this weekend and hopefully can absolutely nail it. But yeah, he's talking about possibly making it back to F1 next year, allegedly. He, according to reports, and in fact I think he said it himself, but it's kind of been twisted by the media, that he's talking to lots of different people about possibly returning to F1 in 2021, bearing in mind lots of different people could be his uncle, his dad or whatever, or his great grandma's uncle's sister's brother or something, I don't know. Something, he could be talking to anybody about it, but it sounds like he's trying to get back in F1 next year. Maybe Haas, I could see him there. Well, take Perez and Hulkenberg at Haas next year would be nice. I don't really want to see Magnussen go, but that'd be quite a nice lineup because it looks like Seb Vessel's in that car next year alongside Lance Stroll. Just nothing official has been confirmed. But yeah, and it won't be. People keep saying that Racing Point are harsh for wanting to put Vettel in that car over Perez and dropping Perez. They're not that harsh in the sense that they're willing to say, you know, oh, it really sucks for Checo that he's come down with COVID-19. We wish him all the best, and we also wish him all the best in his hunt for a new seat because here's our new driver for next year. They're not that harsh. So, yeah, I expect to hear something probably within a week of Checo returning, I would say. But, yeah, we'll see. I think Haas is a good shout for Hulkenberg. I think Alfa Romeo for Perez is a good shout, especially if Mr. Raikkonen decides he's going to retire as is reported or rumoured at this point. For next season, he's going to disappear for 2021. So a bit of experience in that car for Alfa. If Ferrari decides to promote another junior, I don't think that's a bad shout at all. So, yeah, we'll see going forward. But a big weekend for Hulkenberg. Last weekend was pretty big, but this weekend is fairly huge as well because he's got one shot at the moment, as things stand, of delivering a good result. I'll take some of your questions in one. There was something else I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it was for the life of me. But yeah, good to see Hulkenberg back. That's all confirmed. Yeah. We'll see. I would love to see Haas Nico, says Nikolai. Agree. I think he'd be a good fit there. But I'm still not sure about Hulkenberg and Magnussen alongside each other. As a fan, I'd very much like to see that. As sort of getting into Gunther Steiner team boss mode, not sure I'd fancy that. But we'll see. We'll see. I think Hulkenberg is a good lineup. Hulkenberg and Schwartzman at Haas would be nice, says Joel. Maybe Perez and Schwartzman, or Perez and Schumacher, or Perez and Ilott at Alfa Romeo, maybe. Might be a good shout as well. We'll see. Granny Annie says definitely Haas. Yes, Bottas. We've got the Bottas deal as well, so we'll talk about that in a second too, very, very quickly. I did do a video on it yesterday, but yeah, we'll see. Indeed. Indeed, Mango. Absolutely. Sean, is your name spelt Sean or Sean? I'm confused. It's spelt Sean. S-E-A-N. That was harsh. S-E-A-N for Sean. The person who saved Racing Point was Checo, says WM Ryan. I think that's where a lot of frustration's coming from, isn't it, for people? Disappointed that he's been very loyal to that team. I mean, he's not had much of a choice, has he? Not really. Anybody's come knocking for him apart from McLaren, which is a shame, but he wasn't at Racing Point at that point, or Force India as they were then. He's been very loyal to that team, knows it very well. He is one of the major reasons why that team is still around, and he's going to find himself out of a seat. But that's business. I think if you are Lawrence Stroll and your racing point soon to be Aston Martin, and somebody like a Sebastian Vettel becomes available, your head's going to turn. Your head is going to turn, especially if that driver has a great relationship with your team boss, which Vettel does with Otmar Safnauer. They went to the petrol station the other day, apparently. What a nonsense story. I love it. If you've not seen that, Sebastian Vettel was asked why he got in Otmar Safnauer's car. He said, I was just going over to the gas station. Yeah, all right, Seb, whatever. But yeah, he's got a great relationship with him. Your head's going to turn. Aston Martin will want a big marquee name. They've got one in Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time world champion. But from a racing point of view, I'd be putting Sergio Perez in that car alongside Sebastian Vettel. I'm not a parent. Not sure I ever want to be. I'm an uncle. It'll do. But from looking at it from a parent's perspective, if you like, if I had a son, I'd want the best of him, and I'd probably keep him in that car as well. So I totally understand why Lawrence Stroll is keeping Lance there. But if I was looking at it purely from a racing perspective, Perez is in that car alongside Sebastian Vettel. Definitely. Be interested what they go with livery as well next season as well. We'll not talk Formula 3 today, James. We'll do that probably do that at some point. I want to get some more. I want to live stream a bit more this season. I'm missing it for some reason. That's another reason why I'm glad I can do this today. I like having a good waffle with you all and kind of trying to digest it all, make sure we understand it. Eliza says only 15. Yep, only 15. And it's only, like I said, it's only a 15-point deduction as well. It's not. They've not been disqualified from a race, so nobody else gets those points. They just get deleted and they drop down in the championship table. So that was quite surprising as well. Do Racing Point have to change their car? That's from the Soviet Duck. No, they do not. But if they do not change their brake ducts, they will face a reprimand after every event that they use them. There you go. Fill in the blanks. Does anyone think that Kimi has perhaps had enough of Alpha? I actually do. I was thinking this yesterday when I was in the bath because my showers broke. Hence the electrician and other issues. But I was thinking about this in the bath. Do you know what? Because all I think about is F1. If I was Kimi in a position where I talk about how I only want to race in Formula 1 as long as I'm enjoying the racing, do I want to be fighting for 18th, 19th, 20th place in qualifying and possibly races? Not really. I think unless Alpha makes some big step forwards this year, I think he will probably walk away at the end of this season. And I kind of wouldn't blame him in some ways. He's one of those drivers I'd be sad to see go, but at the same time, I wouldn't blame him if he decided to disappear. Any more questions on Racing Point before I disappear? Because my dude will be back soon. Kimi doesn't seem happy. Agree. Wow, Sean, you've had a stinker of a week. Has it been bad? About average for me, to be honest. Newt says F1 Daily was great. F1 Daily was good fun until I realised about 2 weeks into it that there just isn't enough news in Formula 1 to do that. Ironically, I could probably talk for 6 hours today about everything going on quite happily on a live stream and waffle away and watch practice with you all, but I can't unfortunately today. So, yes, absolutely madness. It would have been good stuff. If there's a pink Aston, I'm not watching F1. I'm sure you will. I'm hoping for British Racing Green, though, is what I'm hoping for. Yeah. Is Racing Point's career over? Says Beat Salad. Not quite. I've sent a tip. Did you get it? Let's have a look. I did, Mr. Green. Thank you very much. It says, if things don't go your way, keep complaining until your dreams come true. That's. Thank you very much for your contribution. I've made a whole thing about the channel on that. That's how I go about things on the F1 world. I will complain until it works. And that's definitely what Red Bull, Renault are going to do. I wonder who these teams are as well. It'll be... Thinking of the protest, you're looking at Williams, Renault, Ferrari. That's the thing. Did you see the quote from the Ferrari boss? That's what I was going to mention. Matteo Binotto saying it's good to have clarity on situations like this, or words to that effect. And you're just like, all right, mate. You talk about clarity. Let's see if we can find that quote for you. It was Philip Horton, I believe, tweeted it. So Ferrari boss saying it's good to have clarity on a dubious situation. Yes, it is, Ferrari. It's fantastic to have clarity on a dubious situation. So, your engine, what do you want to talk about? But thank you very much for that contribution there. Ferrari joined the protest last week. Yes, they did. Don't forget to drop a like on the stream, by the way, before we end today. That'd be massively appreciated. And do subscribe if you're new. That is also appreciated. Still content to come this weekend, or providing it with power back and everything's sorted in time. There should be something tomorrow, and there will definitely be a race reaction on Sunday, and a few things that'll be happening next week as well. So lots coming up over the next few weeks. At the moment, by the way, last I read, the Spanish Grand Prix is still going ahead next week as planned. But of course, that is I hate this phrase. That's still a very fluid situation. So that could change between now and next week. But at the moment, it is still going to be the Spanish Grand Prix. But I would imagine if they can't race in Spain, they'll probably just stay in Silverstone for a third race. But yeah, a few things to look out for. I've got some time very, very quickly. A few things to look out for this weekend because I didn't do a preview. I think massive weekend for Valtteri Bottas, especially now he's got his contract all sorted. If he wants to realistically and genuinely thinks he can go for this title, he's got to start the fight back this weekend. And if he can get inside Lewis Hamilton's head by winning at a track where Lewis Hamilton is, let's face it, the dominant... what do you want to say? The dominant driver at the track. He's the master of Silverstone, isn't he? If he wants to get inside his head, this weekend is the right time to do it. And next week in Barcelona, another track that Lewis dominates at as well. If Bottas can get ahead of him this weekend in terms of on track, so beat him in quali, maybe win the race, or beat him in the race and do the same in Barcelona, things could start to turn. But he really does need to start the fight back now because 30 points is huge at this stage of the season. He needs it. Other things that he really needs to win. I don't want to say must win. We've had 4 races, but it's a shortened season, isn't it? So 4 races could be a lot. So I don't want to say it's a must win, but it kind of feels like that for Bottas this weekend. Big weekend for Albon as well. He just needs a result. He just needs to... Sky said it last weekend. He just needs a weekend when nothing happens. He just needs to go out there, practice well, have a good qualifying, get a nice straightforward race and bring the result just to lift some of that pressure and just give himself some confidence to keep an eye on that. But also Nico Hulkenberg, got to watch him as well. Can he get on that podium? Not sure. I mean, if you see in the practice times there, they were from this morning. What was he, 7/10 clear of his teammate? So he's definitely picked up some pace unless Stroll had some kind of problem. But yeah, big weekend for him. Hopefully he can deliver. And I think there was somebody else as well I wanted to talk about very, very quickly to keep an eye on. But I can't remember who it was, and that's going to bug me now massively. But watch for Ferrari, but also the tyres. The tyres are the big talking point. This morning in FP1, nobody ran anything other than the soft tyre. All those lap times you see on screen now, every single lap that was done was on the softest tyre available. So they are quite clearly making sure they've got loads of mediums and loads of... or the 3 mediums and the 2 hard tyres all saved up for the race. So I fully expect to see your Mercedes, your Racing Points, possibly at least one of your Red Bulls getting through Q2 on the medium and then going medium to hard on Sunday. But I think it's going to be a 2-stopper on Sunday. We'll see. But hopefully we don't have the chaos of the blowouts. Of course, they're good fun if you're watching it on TV and there's a bit of chaos at the end, but it's not safe. And yeah, that was it really. So it was all super soft running this morning. Yes, Matt, super soft. I loved the old names. Super soft, ultra soft, hyper soft. Flaccid, rock hard, super hard, whatever they were, so much better. But yeah, I'm going to have to disappear now, unfortunately, because my engineer, Jeff's in my ear telling me all sorts, but no, the electrician will be here soon. So yes, just to very quickly wrap this up, Racing Point, their car was deemed, or the brake ducts were deemed, I guess, illegal with the sporting regulations, but they can still run them for the rest of this weekend and for the rest of this season because the FIA feel it would be unreasonable or unrealistic to expect them to make a change for this season. So, yes, that's kind of it, really. Just wanted to talk about, like I say, apologies it couldn't be in a video, but circumstances, life happens. Stuff like this happens sometimes in life. So, there you go. Apologies for that one. Usually there would be a video, but I will be live streaming more as the season goes on because I miss it. I like talking to you guys and just raffling without raffling. We're not having a raffle. Waffling without a script. I hate scripting stuff. I really, really do. But yes, we'll wrap it up there. Looking forward to this weekend. Obviously, there'll be something possibly tomorrow, we'll say. Definitely a live stream on Sunday, a race reaction. I need to ask John T actually if he's free for that one. I think it's his turn this week. We'll see. But yes, don't forget to follow me on social media. I'll be tweeting and whatnot via my phone whilst watching FP1. So if you're interested in chatting with me over there, then please do feel free to pop over there. Link in the description to social media, and also a link to that FIA document as well, and to Chainbear and Dan's channels. I'm mentioning it now because I forgot to do it last week, so please do give them a follow as well. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye-bye.